Part 58. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 571. My eyes lit up and I asked, what can I do? Kijumendi shook her head and said like a little adult, dream. Dreams, whether for humans or ghosts, are a reflection of real life. As long as I enter the dream, I can know what he has experienced in his life. I really didn't expect that Kijumendi not only possesses domineering toxins, but also possesses such heaven-defying abilities. Kijumendi saw my surprised look and said with a smile, how is it? I'm awesome. Not only can I enter dreams, but I can also destroy people's dreams. Once the dream is destroyed, no matter whether it is a person or a ghost, they will lose consciousness and become the living dead. I gave Kijumendi a thumbs up and said, awesome. Then can you help me figure out what is going on in this village? Kijumendi stretched out her hand and gently placed it on her fair chin. She thought for a moment and replied, it's not impossible to help you, but you have to remember what you said to me before. I nodded and said, I remember, of course I remember. Kijumendi nodded with satisfaction. She came to the village guard, closed her eyes lightly, and then stretched out her hand and placed it on the village guard's forehead. The village guard struggled violently and kept mumbling, but after a burst of colorful light, the village guard became quiet. Fatigue began to appear on his face, his eyelids began to fight, and then he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Time passed minute by minute, and about 10 minutes passed. Kijumendi opened her eyes suddenly, and her expression became a little serious. It was also at the moment Kijumendi opened her eyes that the village guard also woke up. I quickly asked, how is it? Have you figured it out? Kijumendi looked at me and nodded, I understand, this village is very strange. People in the entire village did not die from homicide, but from suicide. They sealed their souls in shadow puppets, and then they would perform shadow puppet shows on the stage at the entrance of the village every once in a while. Not a homicide. Was it suicide? This sentence left me confused. Every time a shadow puppet show is performed, it will attract ghosts from several miles around to watch. Then the dry river in the village will be filled with water, and those ghosts will go along the river and go to a place. I beamed with joy. All my doubts were solved because of these words. If you want to go to the underworld, you have to go along the current while singing shadow puppet show to reach the gate of hell and enter the underworld. A look of concentration appeared on Kijumendi's face. She looked at me and said in a serious tone, moreover, I also discovered that the collective suicide of people in this village is related to one person. Who? It's the man in black robes and the bronze devil mask. Zhao Mian. He is really haunted. Suddenly, there was a burst of dull footsteps outside. With a stern look on my face, I quickly came to the door and looked outside the room. There were dark clouds in the sky, covering the bright moon, and the moonlight became dim. In such an environment, I saw that the yard was densely covered with black shadows. These black figures have human silhouettes, and they are wearing costumes, armor, and cloth. In addition to people dressed up, I also saw animals, pigs, dogs, cattle, and sheep. What surprised me the most was, there were even costumes like Zhao Zilong, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, etc. This is not human, but shadow puppets. The reason why I concluded this is because I saw clearly their true appearance. They are two-dimensional shadow puppets. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 572. These shadow puppets are floating in mid-air, just a flat surface, not three-dimensional, just like a piece of paper. I also watched shadow puppet shows when I was a child. In my impression, shadow puppets are only about the size of a palm. And these shadow puppets in the yard are actually the size of adults. Their expressions are lifelike and their bodies are covered with various colors of paint. Especially the two blushes on the humanoid shadow puppet's cheeks are particularly shocking. They began to approach the room where we were. In a moment, the entire room was surrounded. One pale ghost face after another poked out of the window. The ink-dotted eyes of the shadow puppets stared at us. These shadow puppets were clearly painted eyes, but I saw a sinister and malicious look in their eyes. At this time, the dark wind inside the house was strong, and the sound was like the roar of wild animals. With a bang, the dilapidated wooden door was blown open, and even the mottled wall was blown away. In an instant, the entire room was filled with dust. The shadow puppets suddenly burst into flames and swarmed into the house like a swarm of bees. I quickly picked up the 9 layers of thunder technique, and the powerful thunder surrounded me, directly repelling the shadow puppets that rushed towards me. Jiangshi took a deep breath and took a step. The momentum around him suddenly changed, and a Bagua array appeared under his feet. Hun! Jiangshi shouted loudly, and the shadow puppet in the magic circle was instantly frozen in place and lost all movement. Ruoheng also twitched the red satin and started to face the enemy. Every time she waved the red satin, she would repel a large number of shadow puppets. These shadow puppets are not powerful, but they are extremely numerous. No matter how we use our methods, we cannot completely eliminate them, they will only get bigger and bigger. I took a deep breath and summoned the heavenly secret. 5 blank golden talismans flew out from between my eyebrows. I waved my hand and the 5 golden talismans floated and rotated around me. As soon as I had faith, the 5 elements circle instantly unfolded and appeared at my feet. The next moment, countless vines spread out from the magic circle and attacked the surrounding shadow puppets. In an instant, all the shadow puppets were entangled and tied up. I summoned the heart sword and pointed it at the place where the 5 elements magic array and the fire element talisman were. As I moved, endless fire burst out from the magic circle, forming a wall of fire to protect us. When those shadow puppets came into contact with the fire, they turned into ashes. Jiangshi shouted at me, "This is not the way to go. There are countless such shadow puppets in the whole village, and we can't eliminate them all." Jiangshi is right, we cannot eliminate all these shadow puppets. If you want to go to the underworld, you need them to sing shadow puppets. So, we have to find a way to get out. I nodded and unfolded the 9 eyes heaven realm. I will send you away first, and then find a way to meet you at the stage at the entrance of the village. Several people nodded in agreement. My expression condensed and I looked at Jiangshi and others. They disappeared instantly, leaving only Kijumendi and me in the circle. I said to Kijumendi, "You go back into my body first, and you will come out later." Kijumendi nodded and turned into a colorful butterfly and flew into my eyebrows. I don't want to stay here any longer. Just when I was about to use the power of the 9 eyes heavenly domain to leave here, I heard Xiao Hei's shout. "What about me? Why don't you send me out?" I almost forgot about it. I reached out my hand, grabbed its bird legs, and then disappeared. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 573. I appeared again, already under a big tree. The sound of shadow puppets screaming was heard not far away. Xiao Hei stopped on my shoulder and asked, "Where should we go next?" I glanced at him and said, "Go to the village entrance stage." As soon as I finished speaking, a burst of noisy footsteps came from not far away. I followed the sound and found that the source of the sound was the old house where we were just now. Moreover, the strong yin qi in that area can be condensed into shape. Quick! Let's get out of here. They're catching up. Xiahei shouted at Aaoao. I ran out without him reminding me. Now is not the time to tangle with these guys, you must go to the stage as soon as possible. I walked quickly along the path I came from. But as I walked, I noticed something was wrong. The way I came here seemed to have changed. I stopped and looked at the wall in front of me. When I first came here, it seemed like there was no such wall. Seeing me stop, Xiaohei asked in confusion, "Why didn't you run away?" I pointed to the wall in front of me and said, "I feel a little weird here." I turned around and looked around, and was stunned for a moment. The road we just came from was actually blocked by a dilapidated wall. I looked at the path to the side, and just as I was about to step into it, I heard the strong wind whistling in my ears. I looked stern and retreated quickly. Boom! A wall came straight from my right, blocking the path. How is this going? Before I could think about it, there was a rumbling sound all around, and wall after wall surrounded me, trapping me firmly inside. I stared blankly at what was happening in front of me, and for a moment I didn't know what to do. Could it be said that this is a mechanism of Zhuihua village? As soon as this idea came up, I denied it. Because I felt the cold air on these four walls. I stretched out my hand and touched the wall. A chill spread from the wall and spread down my arms to my whole body. Sure enough, there is a problem. I said to Xiaohei, "Fly higher and take a look. What is going on?" Xiaohei nodded and then flew into the night sky. It hovered in the air for a while and then fell. How to describe it? These four walls are made of shadow puppets, just like those shadow puppets. Made of shadow puppets? I suddenly remembered that in the shadow puppet show, there are not only characters, but also various buildings and weapons. Since the humanoid shadow puppets can move, so can these walls. Thinking of this, I picked up the 9 layers Thunder Ju and wanted to break the shadow puppet wall. As soon as Lei Ju took shape, the four walls suddenly made a loud noise, and then it approached me very quickly. It looked like it was trying to squeeze me into a meat pie. I quickly raised the thunderbolt in my hand and blasted it towards the wall in front of me. Thunder and lightning exploded, spreading throughout the wall. The next moment, the shadow puppet wall actually let out a heart-rending scream. The wall was struck down by lightning, and inside was scarlet flesh and blood. The blood slowly flowed along the wall, which was shocking. It was at this time that the wind roared in my ears. I turned my head sharply and saw 3 walls heading straight towards me. I unfolded the 9 eyes heaven realm and enveloped the 4 shadow puppet walls. Then he used force to make the shadow puppet wall stop moving forward. I slowly opened my hand and then made a fist. Poof! The 4 walls of shadow puppets were torn apart alive by me using the power of the 9 eyes heaven realm. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, and blood splattered everywhere. When Xiaohei saw it, he shouted, "I'll rub it." That's awesome. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 574. Stop talking nonsense, let's get out of here. This village is getting weirder and weirder, and I don't know what will happen if I continue to stay. I continued walking quickly along the path, Xiaohei following closely behind. Not long after I left, Xiaohei landed on my shoulder and asked warily in one direction, "Brother, what do you think that is?" As he spoke, he stretched out his dark wings and pointed in one direction. I looked in the direction Xiaohei pointed. In the darkness at the end of the path, there was a faint outline of a huge black shadow. Because the moon was obscured by dark clouds, I couldn't identify what it was. Dong dong dong. The dull sound of footsteps suddenly sounded. The sound of footsteps was deafening, and every step brought a huge sound. Even the ground under your feet and the trees around you were affected and trembled. I stared closely at the huge figure in the darkness. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, and the guy in the darkness was also exposed to the faint moonlight. I saw a wild beast come into my eyes. The beast has a sheep body and a human face, with eyes under the armpits, tiger teeth and human claws, sharp teeth like saws, a slightly curved mouth and an inward hook. The eyes under the armpits are bright, and bloodthirsty greed exudes from the depths of the eyes. In addition, The beast's body is huge, dozens of feet long, and its head actually accounts for half of the entire body. When I saw the true form of the beast, I looked shocked. It turned out to be a ferocious beast, Dowdy. When Xiao He saw this guy, he screamed and hid behind me. Dowdy opened his bloody mouth and roared loudly. A huge wind blows, smoke and dust are everywhere, the trees are rustling in my ears, and the sense of oppression instantly rises to the extreme. The roaring sound made by Dowdy turned out to be the sound of a baby, which was so weird that it made people's scalp numb. Dowdy arched his body, jumped into the air, and rushed toward me. I quickly dodged to one side, and it was this dodging that made me understand why there was a vicious beast like Dowdy here. Dowdy looks mighty and domineering, but is actually a flat shadow puppet. Shadow puppet play has many mythological elements, such as the four ferocious beasts, Dowdy, Chaos, and Kyanki. The four great beasts, green dragon, white tiger, red bird, black basalt. These elements are reflected in shadow puppetry. Although the Dowdy in front of him is not a real Dowdy, his strength cannot be underestimated. The Dowdy pounce just now actually made a big hole in the ground. Xiao He has long since gone hiding somewhere. Without it, I can deal with this guy wholeheartedly. I stretched out my right hand, held it in the air, and the heart sword appeared in my hand. I raised my heart sword and stabbed Dowdy. Dowdy is not only huge in size, but also very fast. My attack missed perfectly. Then, the wind roared in my ears, and out of the corner of my eye I saw a huge human palm slapping towards me. Helpless, I can only expand the Nine Eyes heavenly domain, manipulate the power in the heavenly domain, and force it to stop. The power of Dowdy is so great that I can hardly hold it any longer. I took a step back, distanced myself from the shadow puppet Dowdy, and then held the Thunder Jew in my hand. Blue lightning emerged from my palm and wrapped around the golden heart sword. In an instant, gold and blue intertwined, lighting up the night sky. I looked behind Dowdy. It was at this moment that Dowdy raised its huge human palm again and tore it open towards me. Just when the palm was about to fall, my figure flashed and disappeared instantly. When I reappeared, I was already behind Dowdy. I raised the heart sword with the thunder in my hand and slashed hard at Dowdy's back. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 575. The heart sword cut through the air and tore through the back. The skin of the shadow puppet's back was torn open instantly, and a bloody gash more than 1 meter long appeared. Thunder and lightning spread along the heart sword to the flesh and blood, then exploded, and a stabbing sound filled the air. These shadow puppets are really weird. It's clearly a piece of paper with only one flat surface, but it can draw blood if it hurts them. Dowdy howled miserably, turned his head sharply, opened his bloody mouth and bit me. Its mouth also only had one flat surface, but the moment it opened, I saw sharp fangs. I looked shocked. If I were bitten by it, I would probably be swallowed whole by it. I raised the sword in my hand and aimed it at the corner of Dowdy's mouth. Puff. The corner of Dowdy's mouth was cut off by me, its jaw was separated from its mouth, and the bite lost its power. Just when I wanted to take advantage of the victory, Xiao He's panicked voice came from behind me. Brother! Watch your back. As soon as I finished speaking, I felt a bone-deep cold appear behind me. I turned around suddenly, and what I saw was a fierce animal face. It is as huge as a glutton, looks like a tiger, and has a pair of blood-red wings. The ferocious beast in front of me turned out to be Kyanki. Just when I was surprised, Kyanki's bloody mouth was already in front of me. My eyes flashed, and the invisible darkness instantly gathered at Kyanki's feet, and then turned into a vast ocean and trapped Kyanki tightly. I took this opportunity to get out of the attack range of the two beasts. As soon as I got out of trouble, a man's voice came from the darkness. The voice was filled with murderous intent. Everyone who enters this village will die. A familiar figure came out of the darkness. His clothes were in tatters and his hair was messy. The stench from his body could be smelled from a distance. Village guard. The village guard stood in front of two shadow beasts. The foolish look between his brows had disappeared completely, replaced by endless coldness and murderous intent. It seems that the village guard just now was pretending to be stupid. The corner of the village guard's mouth raised slightly, revealing a sneer. He stretched out his hand and fumbled around in his trousers pocket. When he took out his hands, I saw two more shadow puppets in his hands. The village guard threw the shadow puppets into the sky, then made a hand seal with his hands and muttered something. Immediately, the two shadow puppets thrown into the air by the village guard began to change. The roars of beasts came from the air one after another. There was a flash of blood, and two huge ferocious beasts appeared in front of me. When I saw these two ferocious beasts, my expression became serious. The village guard looked at me and said coldly, "These four shadow puppets have been raised by us shadow puppets for generations. Although they are not real ferocious beasts, they still have the power of ferocious beasts. The two ferocious beasts are Taozu and Chaos. Chaos looks like a dog, with long hair and four legs, like a bear but without claws, and has eyes but cannot see. The tree is as big as a tiger, with hair 2 feet long, a human face, tiger feet, mouth, and teeth, and a tail 1 foot or 8 feet long." The village guard still sneered darkly at me. "Boy, you are lucky to die in the hands of the ferocious beast that protects the village." Although the four ferocious beasts were all shadow puppets, their aura was extremely powerful. Standing in front of them, I felt powerless. But this feeling of powerlessness quickly disappeared. Aren't they just four ferocious beasts? See how I deal with them. I directly summoned 4 blank golden heavenly secrets, and then with a thought, I drew the 4 symbols talisman. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 576. Obscure incantations began to appear on the 4 blank heavenly secrets. The golden light slowly dissipated, replaced by 4 kinds of light: green, white, red, and black. I waved my hand casually, and the 4 elephant talismans surrounded the 4 ferocious beasts, and 4 rays of light shone directly on the ground. The next moment, a magic circle emerged from the feet of the 4 ferocious beasts. Ho ho ho! Dragons roar, tigers roar, phoenixes, the sounds are endless. 4 illusory voices slowly emerged from the talismans, namely Qinglong, White Tiger, Suzaku, and Suanwu. They were as powerful as a rainbow, exuding a strong aura of awe, which formed a sharp contrast with the ferocious paleness of the 4 ferocious beasts. The 4 elephant array began to move clockwise, and the 4 elephants launched an attack on the 4 ferocious beasts at the same time. A battle between a divine beast and a ferocious beast begins. I looked at the village guard. The expression on the village guard's face at this moment was extremely wonderful. There was confusion, shock, and fear in his eyes. The village guard looked at me and exclaimed, "How could you use the 4 symbols array?" I raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth and said nothing. The battle between the 4 ferocious beasts and the 4 elephants is extremely exciting. The 4 elephants cooperated tacitly and launched fierce attacks. They had the upper hand from the very beginning. I believe that defeating the 4 ferocious beasts is only a matter of time. I won't wait here stupidly. I want to kill the village guard. If he doesn't get rid of him, he will cause us trouble later. Thinking of this, I secretly used Netherworld Ghost Sea. The ink-colored darkness gathered at the feet of the village guard. The village guard seemed to have noticed something different and quickly looked around. The moment he turned his head, I operated the Netherworld Ghost Sea to wrap him up. The dark sea of ghosts slowly climbed up from the village guard's feet, and then bound him tightly. What is this? The village guard shouted in horror. His lower body was wrapped in a sea of ghosts, but his upper body could still move. He raised his hands and began to knead. I was slightly stunned, and quickly called out the Yin soldiers. A Yin soldier wearing armor and holding a long knife emerged from the sea of ghosts behind the village guard. Then he raised the long knife in his hand and slashed at the village guard's neck. Just when the long sword was about to chop off the head of the village guard, countless black shadows flew towards the side from the night sky. The black shadow is not big, just like a moth. Looking through the moonlight, they turned out to be countless palm-sized shadow puppets. The shadow puppets came to the villagers at extremely fast speeds. The movement speed of these shadow puppets even exceeded the speed of Yin General's sword. The skin is like a dogskin plaster and is plastered all over the body of the village guard. When the long knife fell, there was only a clang sound, but the village guard was intact. His neck was as hard as steel because it was protected by shadow puppets. This guy is really difficult to deal with. I activated the soul-stealing blood hand, and scarlet blood spread down my arm and poured into the sea of ghosts. The dark sea of ghosts instantly turned extremely scarlet. Several more Yin generals appeared, and their armors were stained red with blood. The ghost sea split into countless small streams, like octopus tentacles. These small streams penetrated the shadow puppets and then pulled out the villagers. Ho ho ho! The battle between the 4 elephants and the 4 ferocious beasts behind them has become intense. The 4 elephants have suppressed the 4 ferocious beasts, but the moment the village guard was pulled out, the 4 ferocious beasts attacked the village guard as if they were crazy. The 4 ferocious beasts attacked together and rushed out of the magic circle. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 577. The glutton opened his bloody mouth and swallowed the village guard directly into his belly. My expression froze, and I rushed towards Dowdy, but was blocked by the other 3 ferocious beasts. I manipulated the 4 image array, and the 4 divine beasts once again surrounded the ferocious beasts. In just a few seconds, Dowdy had disappeared. I couldn't help but curse. It's really hard to guard against. Since the village guard has escaped, there is no need for me to chase him. I turned around and controlled the sea of ghosts to submerge the 3 ferocious beasts. Under the attack of the Yin soldiers and the 4 elephant beasts, the 3 ferocious beasts were beaten to pieces. As the 3 ferocious beasts disappeared, the surroundings returned to deathly silence. Xiao He flew over, his little eyes full of vigilance. He whispered in my ear, "Brother, there was someone secretly watching the battle just now. Is anyone watching?" "Who is it?" I asked. Xiao He glanced around and said in my ear, "That's the Taoist priest who wanted to stew me. However, he chased after the fool after he escaped, so he shouldn't be an enemy." I nodded. Xiao He was right. If that Taoist priest wanted to attack me, he would have done it long ago. Suddenly, I vaguely heard the sound of gongs and drums. The sound was not loud, but it could still be heard in the quiet night. I carefully identified the direction from which the sound came, and finally focused my attention on the entrance of the village. Has the shadow puppet show begun? I quickened my pace and rushed towards the entrance of the village. I walked out of the alley, and the scene in front of me could only be described as weird. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and the thick dark clouds engulfed the bright moon and the stars in the sky. There was no moonlight, no starlight, and only endless darkness. The howling wind seemed to be roaring, blowing the branches of the trees and making a rustling sound. Darkness, silence, and a strange atmosphere enveloped the stage. In this endless darkness, the stage was brightly lit. The old curtain revealed a dense white light, and the 2 shadows showed various postures on the curtain. The sounds of percussion and string instruments echoed across the stage. At the same time, an eerie singing voice suddenly sounded, making people's hair stand on end. If what Kijumendi said is true, then when the next 10,000 ghosts attack, the dry river will be filled with water. I looked around, trying to find Zhang Shi and others. I scanned around and saw nothing. At this moment, I felt my hand being grabbed by someone. I turned around sharply and saw nothing. "Lucio, it's me." A familiar voice suddenly sounded. "It's Miao Fengluan." Immediately afterwards, a cold light enveloped my body, and Miao Fengluan appeared in front of my eyes instantly. Not only her, but Zhang Xi, Ruoheng, and Tao Wen are all here. When Xiao He saw me disappear, he was stunned on the spot. It shouted in a low voice, "Brother! You can't leave your little brother here. It's so dark here. I'm scared." I rolled my eyes and signaled Miao Fengluan to use Shinayan on Xiao He. Miao Fengluan nodded, then stretched out his hand towards Xiao He, and a cold light enveloped Xiao He's dark feathers. "Damn! Brother! I thought you didn't want me anymore." Xiao He shouted in surprise after seeing me. I quickly reached out my hand and pinched its beak. "Use your eyes to signal it not to speak." Xiao Heizan understood, and the few of us set our sights on the stage. On the curtain, two shadows were fighting together, and the sound of the play could be heard far away. As the shadow play progressed, I always felt like something was approaching in the darkness. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 578. I don't know how much stronger I feel about yin energy than the average person. The feeling was weak at first, but as time went by it became stronger and stronger. A strong gust of wind blew up, kicking up a thick layer of dust that spread all around. My vision was blocked and I couldn't see anything clearly. When the smoke and dust cleared, the moon in the sky poked its head out from the dark clouds. The cold moonlight poured down, and the originally empty stage was filled with people. These people had no color on their faces, their eyes were dull, their expressions were cold, and their eyes were ashen. They stared straight at the stage, exuding a ghostly aura from all over their bodies. In addition, there are countless ghosts approaching in the darkness. Looking far into the distance, there are also ghosts standing on the river bank. I have known for a long time that dirty tricks can attract evil spirits. But I didn't expect that a shadow puppet show could attract so many evil ghosts. Ruoheng whispered in my ear, "This situation is a bit troublesome." I looked at Ruoheng in confusion. Ruoheng looked at the stage with her beautiful eyes and said seriously, "Whether it is a shadow puppet show or a ghost play, they are all yin plays. If we interrupt the shadow puppet show, these evil ghosts will hunt us down." Ruoheng's worries are not unreasonable. We don't know when the dry river will be filled with water and how to move along it. All this is unknown, and no one knows what will happen next. Now that we have the protection of Shinayan, those evil ghosts will naturally not be able to find us. If Shinayan fails, then thousands of ghosts will rise up and tear us apart. I looked at Miao Fengluan. Her face was a little pale, and using Shinayan was very draining on Miao Fengluan. "Fengluan, are you okay?" Miao Fengluan looked at me, raised the corners of her mouth slightly, showed a cute smile, and said, "Don't worry, I can do it." "Troubled you?" Miao Fengluan shook her head gently. "We continue the movement of those evil spirits in the coffin." Xiao He, on the other hand, relied on the protection of Shinayan to fly up to high altitude to observe the situation on the river bed. As time passed by, the shadow puppet performance reached its climax. The ghosts watching the shadow puppet show cheered in unison. The scene was extremely strange. At this moment, the sound of rushing water filled my ears. At the same time, Xiao He fell from the sky, landed on my shoulder, and said, as expected, water came out of the dry river from the ground. I looked happy and quickly called everyone to approach the river. We walked carefully among the fierce ghosts, but fortunately with the protection of Shinayan, we were not discovered. When we came to the river, we saw that the soil on the river bed seemed to be boiling, and river water emerged from time to time. Moreover, this river water is not ordinary water. Because I feel the yin energy, and the river water feels a little familiar to me. I suddenly recalled the Styx River where I took a boat ride with Mu Qing last time. Is it possible that the river in front of me is also the Styx? The river water is rising more and more, and soon the dry river bed is filled. The river water is fast and turbulent, flowing in the distance with great force. If you fall, you may not even have the ability to resist. If this river is the only way to the underworld, so how can we protect ourselves in such a fast-flowing river? I looked around, and there were ghosts standing on both sides of the river. Their eyes never left the stage from beginning to end. Even though they were so far apart, they were struggling to watch. At this moment, Zhang Xi patted me on the shoulder, then stretched out his hand to point in one direction. I looked in the direction he pointed and saw a huge turtle emerging from the bottom of the river. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 579. Wrong. Calling a turtle is somewhat inaccurate. That's a turtle. The dark brown turtle shell was covered with neat lines. The turtle slowly poked its black head out of the water and looked around. The turtle in front of me instantly reminded me of the old turtle in Tongtian River in Journey to the West. Xiao He widened his small dark eyes and looked at the old turtle in disbelief. He said before that the little black dot on the human skin paper was a tortoise, and he was right. The old turtle began to swim towards us along the river. At this point, I think I know how to get to the underworld. That's riding on this old turtle. The turtle's back is so big that it can support several of us. But at this moment, I suddenly felt an extremely powerful yin qi coming from behind me. My expression froze, and I turned my head stiffly, only to see a male ghost wearing a shroud that stood out among all the evil ghosts. The yin qi emanating from the shroud ghost is as strong as the Ghost King. Zhang Xi and others also discovered the shroud ghost, and their faces became a little ugly. The shroud ghost slowly walked toward us and finally stopped on the river bank. And the old turtle also stopped in front of the shroud ghost. The shroud ghost jumped onto the old turtle's back. The old turtle began to move along the river. Seeing this scene, I instantly understood what this old turtle was about. It is specially designed to carry powerful ghosts to the underworld. Zhang Shishi and I looked at each other, and we both understood each other's intentions in each other's eyes. I unfolded the Nine Eyes Heaven Realm and enveloped Zhang Shi and others and Lao Yu. I grabbed Zhang Shi and disappeared in an instant. When he reappeared, he was on the back of the old turtle. I picked up the bloody 9-layer thunderbolt and blasted it towards the shroud ghost. All this happened so suddenly that the shroud ghost didn't react quickly and was directly thrown into the river by me. Then, I looked at the few people on the shore, and then used the ability of the Nine Eyes Sky Domain to transfer them to the old turtle's back. At the same time, the ghosts watching the shadow puppet show suddenly burst out and rushed towards us like zombies. The powerful yin energy emitted by these fierce ghosts seems to be able to condense the air. I took out the evil suppressing seal from my pocket and ran into the air. The evil suppressing seal emitted a dazzling light. The words on the bottom of the seal slowly flew out and floated around Lao Yuan's body, forming an invisible protective shield that isolated all the evil spirits. Zhang Shi squatted down, bit his finger, and drew a magic circle on the old turtle's back. Wang Gui's face showed a look of viciousness and resentment. They stretched out their pale hands and kept attacking the golden words on the bottom of the seal. The old turtle moved forward slowly in the river, very slowly. The shroud ghost that I knocked into the water emerged from the river. He looked at me with a malicious look on his face, and there was only cold murderous intent in his eyes. He floated to the surface of the water, and a powerful and penetrating yin energy erupted from his body. The extremely cold yin qi seemed to freeze the surface of the river. The strength of the shroud ghost has reached the level of the Ghost King, and is even more powerful than the unformed ghost baby. He roared toward us against the water, and I looked stern. If we attack the evil suppressing seal with such yin energy, it is estimated that the evil suppressing seal won't last long, and we will face crazy Wongui by then. I activated the netherworld ghost sea, and the ink-colored darkness gathered towards the water and condensed. Facing such a powerful ghost, I did not dare to neglect, and quickly activated the soul-stealing blood hand. The scarlet blood dyed the ghost sea red, and yin soldiers wearing blood-red armor emerged from the ghost sea. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 580. The first thing the yin soldiers did when they appeared was to wave the long knife in their hands and attack the surrounding ghosts. The strength of the yin soldiers is higher than that of the Li ghosts, but there are so many Li ghosts that the yin soldiers cannot hold out for long. The netherworld ghost sea also restricted the movements of the Shroud Ghost King. But the movement speed of this old turtle is simply too slow. If it continues like this, we will not be able to leave here. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared on the shore. He yelled at us, "Take me." I followed the sound and saw a man wearing a Taoist robe and a Taoist haircut coming into my eyes. Is this the Taoist priest hiding in the dark? He looks about the same age as me. Tao Wen was slightly startled when he saw the Taoist priest, and then shouted to him, "Senior brother Wang. Is that you?" The Taoist priest was stunned for a moment, then a hint of joy appeared on his brows, and he quickly shouted, "It's me. It's me. Junior brother Tao." It was obvious that the two people knew each other. Tao Wen quickly turned to me and said, "Lu Su, he is one of the disciples of the elders of the four sealed ghost lords. He is here to prevent the ghost lord from being born. You should find a way to get him up. Since they are a group of people, it is not impossible to let him come up." I looked around, and everywhere I looked, there was chaos, with countless ghosts launching crazy attacks at the old turtle. If the evil suppressing seal is removed and Taoist priests are allowed in, we will be in danger. Zhang Xiai, who was concentrating on drawing the magic circle, suddenly raised his head and said, "The magic circle has been drawn." I nodded and shouted to the Taoist priest on the shore, "You can find a way to get close to us, and I will get you up." The distance between me and the Taoist priest is extremely far, and even if I use Nine Eyes Heavenly Domain, I can't transfer him here. Therefore, I have to wait for him to get close before using it. After hearing this, the Taoist priest ran towards us, followed by countless ghosts. At this moment, the slow-moving old turtle suddenly sped up. I looked at the river and found that it was not the turtle that was speeding up its swimming speed at all, but that the river had become more rapid. Countless evil spirits jumped into the river and flowed down the river. The Shroud Ghost King also broke free from the shackles of the netherworld ghost sea and rushed towards us again close to the water. At the same time, the Taoist priest also entered the Nine Eyes Heavenly Domain. I condensed my expression and used Nine Eyes Heavenly Domain to envelope the Taoist priest. The Taoist priest suddenly disappeared on the spot, and when he reappeared, he was behind the old turtle. I was slightly startled. Oh no, I didn't control the distance well and made a mistake in the transfer. With a pop, the Taoist priest fell into the rushing river. He struggled desperately to stabilize his body, but the river was too fast. I looked at the Taoist priest and used the power of the Nine Eyes Heavenly Domain to transfer it to the old turtle's back. Boom! The Ghost King in Shroud ran headlong into the barrier formed by the evil suppressing golden inscriptions. The light of the golden inscriptions instantly dimmed a bit. The Taoist priest struggled to stand up, shook the river water from his hair, and said fiercely at me, "Goi-san. Did you do it on purpose?" I smiled awkwardly and said, sorry, my fault." The Taoist priest also knew that now was not the time to dwell on this. He looked at the Shroud Ghost King who was desperately attacking Jin Wen and said, "We have to eliminate this guy, otherwise, he will follow us." I nodded, and the Taoist priest continued, "I will control him later, and then you take action to eliminate him or injure him."